Boxing Unfiltered, Lucas Media. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. So Anthony Joshua, who's coming after a loss against Daniel Dubois last year, has been somewhat kind of quiet. Now, you've heard rumblings that maybe he'll finally fight Deontay Wilder, or will he do a rematch with Daniel Dubois? Well, this is what Eddie Hearn had to say in regards to Anthony Joshua's future. Quote, because there was rumors out there that he might be in a 3-fight deal with Riyadh. This is what Eddie Hearn had to say. Quote, yeah, that's not true. We're actually discussing a 2-fight deal with Riyadh season. We've been told that, Turki Al-Sheikh said that on the night Canelo versus William Scope when we had our meeting. And that's the plan, really. We want to box sometime this year, October, November, December. Also says in this article from Boxing Scene, Hearn wants to see what happens in the July 19th rematch between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois, both of whom have both beaten Joshua. Confirming anything, Tyson Fury has floated with a long comeback and would immediately be linked to Joshua should he return. I also saw that as well, where Tyson Fury was out there talking about AJ, let's make the fight, but he's supposed to be retired. Tyson Fury, that is. Also, Eddie Hearn has confirmed both Dillian Whyte and Jared Anderson have both also been mentioned as potential opponents for Joshua. 2 guys that have been discussed, but nothing's concrete. And this is what Eddie Hearn had to say about the rumors. Now, Dillian Whyte, I would actually like to see that fight again. If y'all go back and watch the first fight, it was a classic fight. Yes, AJ was winning, but then he got caught and he was kind of wobbly. And had he failed, it probably would have ruined his career. And he wouldn't have been the superstar boxer that he was for a period of time. But let me say this, right? When it comes to Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, I was a fan of Anthony Joshua. Honestly, I was a fan of him. I was around. Like I said, when he was fighting Dillian Whyte, when he fought Charles Martin and beat him for the IBF title, I was around. And right after that, you started seeing the games being played by Eddie Hearn. And you heard this, we was begging for years to see Anthony Joshua versus Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. It was a lot of games being played around. Wilder, according to reports, Wilder and Al Heyman offered Anthony Joshua $50 million up front and then the split on the back end. But then I heard Joshua tell IFL TV, I'm not going to sell my soul for $50 million. And it was just so many games being played around. I mean, networks got involved. I remember Lou DiBella was Wilder's promoter. Somehow he got nixed from the deal, and the fight never happened. And it was so bad that almost Anthony Joshua, he didn't even want to mention Wilder at all. And I remember seeing a report the other day where Eddie Hearn was talking about, well, Deontay Wilder, nobody's afraid of him anymore. Okay, so if that's the case, are you admitting that you was afraid of Anthony, that you was afraid of him, Eddie and AJ? It was like whenever AJ saw Deontay Wilder, he turned into you would have thought he was seeing a ghost. And what happens, okay? Anthony Joshua, they try to promote the man in New York, Madison Square Garden, when he went up against Andy Ruiz. He drops Ruiz, but then ends up getting knocked out, panics, then he runs around the next fight. The same thing that y'all try to talk about Devin Haney from doing. Joshua was running around against Andy Ruiz in the rematch, and that was, to my knowledge, one of the first fights in Saudi Arabia, right? So he gets all the belts back, starts, playing around, hand-picking opponents, and then what happens? He goes up against Usyk, who's supposed to be a smaller guy, a cruiserweight, and loses twice. And then at that point, Joshua was kind of a shell of himself. Yeah, he had comebacks. Yeah, he partnered up with Derrick James. And, I remember when he went up against Francis Ngannou, he knocked him out. People saying, oh, Anthony Joshua's back. I'm like, why? Because he knocked out an MMA fighter? When Tyson Fury was out there playing around and got caught by Francis? You got to factor all that in. And then when he went up against Daniel Dubois, now there was reports out there back in the day that Dubois knocked out AJ in sparring, which is why AJ didn't really want to fight him. And AJ, he also kind of lost his mind. People kind of turned on him a little bit. And when I say lost his mind, he realized how fake a lot of these fans are. Like, yeah, they're fans of you until you have 2 or 3 losses. God forbid you lose a couple of times. So then, he tried to be this tough guy persona and try to push up on Dubois. What happens? He goes in there, gets knocked out by Daniel Dubois. And honestly, AJ was a shell of himself, So it's like, okay, if you give him 2 fights with Dillian Whyte and Jared Anderson, he's clearly not going to be the same fighter. Like I said, y'all went around talking about, well, Wilder's not the same fighter. And okay, well, neither is Anthony Joshua. He's a shell of himself. So I don't know what's going to happen. And like I said, it's unfortunate that him and Deontay Wilder, these 2 brothers never got to fight for undefeated at heavyweight, which is one of the I was talking with my homeboys earlier, T-Way of Sports and Culture, and we were talking, and when you think about it, right, that was one of the biggest downfalls of boxing, because heavyweights have always been the crown of all sports, right? Historically, heavyweight fighters have always made more money than anybody. Yes, Floyd and Manny made a lot of money, but those are one-offs. That don't really happen like that. But Mike Tyson was walking around making $35-40 million a fight in the 1990s. You know, Jack Dempsey was making million-dollar fights in the 1920s. Some of these fighters still not getting million-dollar paydays, and he was making that money in 1926, if my memory is correct. 1926, 1927, when he fought against Gene Tunney. And his second fight, Gene Tunney made $1 million. Tex Ricker took a picture with him to show $1 million check, and they was doing $1 million gates back then. So you had two guys who could have been on a collision course. And listen, if Joshua went in there and beat Wilder, he got my respect. But it was just too many playing games, and you only getting 15 million flat fee, and it's got to be on the zone, and and I don't know, man. But Eddie Hearn, honestly, he kind of ruined AJ, and I hope nothing with the best for him. But at this moment, AJ is a shell of himself in the ring. You know, maybe he can have 2 more fights. And even with the whole Tyson Fury thing, that was another thing, right? How come those 2 guys never got it on in their prime? You know, both these guys are over. Both got beat by Usyk twice. And it's funny because Usyk never even fought Wilder, but he called Wilder out first. But he fought both them guys twice. And even if anything, Wilder fans of England not mad at that. Right? We know how much y'all love boxing, and that's where boxing originated from. But how come Tyson Fury, the fans aren't demanding that fight between Tyson Fury and AJ? Both of these guys was champions 10 years ago, and they still playing games, you know. But like I said, that was one of the unfortunate things about boxing, and that's why boxing is where it is. That's why Supreme Leader Turkey Al-Sheikh came in and took over, and I mean, you see what's going on now. But I just want to give my quick thoughts about it. Do y'all agree, disagree? Let me know below.